Hello folks, how are you? Keeping well? It's me, Martin McCauley, with another Irish Whiskey review. I'm here today with a trio, and it comes as a little gift pack, so I bought the gift pack rather than having to buy all of them. They're really quite nice bottles, to be honest. They're one of those things, a lot of people would have bought people this for Christmas. That's what this would have been for, primarily. But little taster packs, quite nice because you get to experience, the range of what people are doing. And always nice to be able to get a little sample, and then you can take it from there. Now this is Heaven's Door, and this is really, really what huge amount of things are happening in whiskey world. Pretty much the same as everywhere else, I suppose. You get a celebrity on board, they stick their name to it. How much input they have on the final product, who knows? Could be quite a lot, and in other ways probably not very much. They get paid an awful lot of money just to have their name there. Now the celebrity involved with this, you may already know or could guess, it's Robert Zimmerman, or if you much more famously known as the Nobel laureate Bob Dylan. So yeah, it's not a quiz show today, by the way, guys. We're just doing this. We're going to review all three of these. I'm not going to go into huge depth on each individual bottle because, well, it was bought as a gift pack, and most of the time, what you'll do is you'll just sample each one, sample them all three at once, type thing. That's kind of what you're going to do. Now, this brand, if you like, has been going about for a while now. It's been going about since 2015, if I remember. I don't have it wrote down. I have some notes written here for each of these because my wee brain couldn't cope with all of this. But I didn't write down when it was formed, but I think it was formed in 2015, if memory serves. And yeah, they've been doing quite well. They've been making a lot of noise, certainly appropriate for a musician like Bob Dylan. Now, one of the things about it, the artwork on the front, this is probably most of what Bob Dylan's input on this would be, I would think. He's an artist, he's an art gallery, and he has a company called Buffalo Ironworks. And essentially what they do is they take bits of stuff and weld it together and say that it's artistic and flog it to people for lots and lots and lots of money. Why not? There's worser ways to be making money. Now I'm going to pour, what one will I go with first? I think I'll go with the straight bourbon. Yeah, hang on, that's the one. We'll go with the straight bourbon first. Nice little cork stopper. Now, the straight bourbon, this is slightly unusual. Well, all of them have a slight twist on them, which I'll get to in a little minute. I'll move that to there. Now, this is slightly different because it's a Tennessee bourbon, and quite proudly states it. It's not trying to hide that behind anything, which good on them. I'm all for. Now, it's one thing about them all, by the way, is they're all kosher. So if you're Jewish, you can drink away at them. I'm not really sure what the process to make whiskey kosher is, mainly because I can't be bothered looking into it because it doesn't really affect me that much. but they are all kosher, so there you go. Now this is 46%. And as I say, it's a Tennessee bourbon, which I'm sure really rankles a few people, that it's a Tennessee bourbon as opposed to a traditional Kentucky bourbon. Now, bourbon has to be 51% corn. Now, this is 70%, so much higher. Corn tends to lead to a sweeter, more syrupy sweetness than sort of your single malt scotches and barley would do. It's 46%, and it's got a strange note to it. It really has. This is quite old for a bourbon. Bourbons tend not to have a huge age to them because they don't really need a huge age to them. This is supposedly somewhere between 6 and 8 years old. It's not stated. There's no age statement on it, so it's hard to know. But I've been online doing a little bit of research on this, and some places say it's 6. Some say it's 6.5 years old. Other people say it's 8-year-old. It certainly doesn't nose like it's 18 or 8-year-old. Sorry. And it doesn't taste 8 years old. Notes wise, it is sweet, but a nice sweetness, honeyed, plenty of vanilla there. Baked cake, kind of like a Battenberg cake-esque to it. Some nutty notes, that kind of thing. Coming in, a little bit of burn. There's a little bit of a rawness to it, which it's not bad actually. I don't tend to like that, but in this it kind of works because it's quite sharp, quite sweet, and kind of got a rawness to it that's coming across and coming through. So yeah, it's not bad at all. There's a lot better bourbons out there, if I'm totally honest. A lot more of the craft bourbons tend to have more going for them than this does. These aren't cheap, by the way. These are not entry-level stuff. They're about £80 a bottle. And for £80, it's a nice one to have. If you know someone who's a Bob Dylan fan and you want to try one, well, fine, that's okay. Personally, nosing, it's not great on the nose. On the palate, quite warm, quite sharp, quite harsh. Probably do with an ice cube or a touch of water in it. I'm not going to bother because I'm going to move on and talk about these other two. Double barrel, like the shotguns. Now, a touch more. Double barrel. Now, this is interesting enough, to be honest. See, again, with the artwork on the front, double barrel. Again, there's not an awful lot of information about these. And if you go to the website, there's not an awful lot of information. There's a few tasting notes and that's about it. But the double barrel is aged for 6 years in an alligator cask and then aged in New American oak, which you don't want things in New oak too much because it gives that green harshness, sort of tannic, bitterness, astringency. So it tends not to be in new oak very long. Alligator char, that should mellow it out. But this is 3 whiskies blended, so it's 2 Tennessee whiskies and then a bourbon. And this is kind of the interesting part on it, it's 50% by the way. It then goes through the Lincoln County process, which for anyone who's not sure what that is, it goes through a bed of charred maple. Very similar to, that's what Jack Daniels does, that's a Tennessee whiskey style. So it's got lots and lots of carbon contact, which that activated carbon acts as a purifier and a filter, which, and I hate using this word, it tends to get people what they call smooth. I very, very seldom ever use the word smooth because I don't really know what people mean by it most of the time. They say smooth, and it means so many different things to so many people. On the nose, it's got a much better nose than the bourbon. Much more pleasant, more notes to it. It's got much more woody notes, much more rounded, sort of mellow, less harsh and aggressive nose to it. Slightly honeyed nose, little bit of sugar. Much more pleasant than this. This is much better than this. It's got lovely woody notes to it, nuts, almond, slight almond, more hazelnuts on the finish. It's got a little bit of chocolates coming through. Again, more nuts, more wood. Not very tannic. It doesn't have, for being a new American oak, you wouldn't know it was new in new American oak. You know that it's got a bit more age to it. It tastes and feels, mouth feels better than this. So yeah, the double wood is much better than the bourbon. On the nose, slight green note, I suppose, coming through there now. Slight leafy nose to it, but quite fresh. Yeah. That's quite tasty. Again, all of these are about the same price. They're about that £80 mark. So, yeah, that's really quite pleasant. Now the last one is, and this is a bigger market getting all the time, and for one big reason. Now, Heaven's Door straight rye whiskey, finished in Vosges oak barrels. Cigar oak barrels, because the barrels are elongated a little bit, so there's more surface contact, and thus more contact with the wood. Now, there's a little bit about this. Yep, 46%. No colouring, no chill filtration done on this. On any of these, I don't think. It doesn't say that, but I don't think there is. Straight rye, 46%. Now it's finished in toasted oak cigar barrels. Toasted, obviously, to take that harsh bitterness out of them. And dried for 3 years in Vosges in France, in the Palatine Forest. And it's said that this is the first time this has ever been done. I don't know. No one's ever said they've done it before. Maybe they have. Cigar barrels, don't know. Now, this is bought in spirit. And when you see the word rye on a whiskey from the States, you are pretty certain sure it comes from one distillery, MGP. Midwest Grain Products is a enormous distillery, and they pump out huge amounts of rye whiskey to sell to other people. Now, they make for 50 different brands, including Angel's Envy, Bullet Rye, George Dickel, all of these big American brands, Heaven Hill and Heaven's Door included. So you have this one massive distillery. If you go on and look at it, it's one of those, not a secret, but most people don't know about it, and that's where this is all coming from. And rye's becoming much bigger. There are smaller. The Leopold brothers, for example, are making their own rye independently. A lot of it's on their own farm. I think all of their rye comes from their own farm. But if you see the word rye on an American whiskey, you can be pretty sure that it's come from MGP. Just a huge place. Now, this has 95% rye in it, which is very high, very high. Now, rye tends to be more peppery, more spicy, and give you that sort of almost a pot still kick. You know, it's if you're familiar with Irish pot still whiskies, then it kind of lends. It's not dissimilar. Okay. on the nose, it has spice, yes, orange peel or orange pith. The pith. It's not zesty. It's not as sharp as zest. It's that pith in between the skin and the flesh. A little bit peppery. I'm going to say pepper, but not overly ground pepper. It's maybe just cracked black pepper as opposed to ground black pepper. It's funny because there's almost a smoky element. Almost a smoky element. And if you nose this, you'll understand what I mean by that. It's not peated, it's not smoked, there's no smoke element there, but it's just on the cusp of it. It almost noses as if some of it has had an exposure to peat. It hasn't, it's not peat, it's not peaty, it's just on the verge of it. Yeah, it's quite pleasant on the nose. I wouldn't write home about it, but it's quite pleasant. Quite sharp, a little bit of burn, spicy burn, and all the better for it. Quite fruity, moved away from sort of the pith of the orange into more of the flesh. Not overly sweet orange, but really quite nice. Tropical fruit, a little bit more spice. Coriander, touch of nutmeg. Again, it's that sort of tropical fruit. There's a few there. You could probably, some people would maybe say it's a little bit more like cooked, sort of barbecue pineapple. Other people would maybe say it's a bit more sort of not really sweet orange. Your big orange with lots of flesh to it. And quite peppery on the finish, not huge finish on it, disappears quite quickly, and it just carries on similar. Not a huge development on it either, but pleasant enough. If I had to pick one, it would definitely be the double barrel. And if you are a fan of Robert Zimmerman, poet laureate, not poet laureate, Nobel laureate, it might be worth a try again. Nice to have this pack actually, because you get 3 different styles of American whiskey, and you get to nose, contrast, and compare. Now that's developed even more. And now that it's been out, a little bit of pear note in it now. This is going a bit more woody as it's went on. This isn't out as long as the other ones, but. And that's actually probably lightened a little bit and became a little bit fresher. So yeah, nice to have these. Do I rate them highly? The double barrel one, yeah. So in order of preference, dum dum dum. So there you go. If you pick them up, you probably won't be disappointed in them. Some people will probably swing over and say this is really, really enjoyable. Other people probably think, well, I could have spent my money a little bit better. But on the whole, nice range. My recommendation, go for the double barrel. Much, much more pleasant than the other 2. So yeah, do check out Justin and myself on Saturday nights on the Irish Whiskey Review, on Facebook, YouTube, all of that kind of jazz. And I will hopefully see you again soon. Take care. Bye bye.